I want to bring in Emmy-winning comedian, attorney, and host of the show Permission to Speak, Paul Mercurio, and critic at large for NPR, Eric Deggans. Good to have you here, both of you. I'll begin with you, Eric. Is this a pressure campaign targeted at just Jimmy Kimmel, or is the FCC going after something much bigger at Disney?
Well, I guess that would depend on who you ask. The FCC, I think, maintains that their review is part of these allegations that they have that they're uncomfortable with Disney's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and initiatives, and that they have some quibble with them over retransmission policies as well. But because this action so closely follows the president and the first lady's criticism of Jimmy Kimmel's joke from last week, it has a lot of critics sort of scratching their head and wondering about the timing of it. We've seen people like Senator Elizabeth Warren already speak up and say, that this seems punitive and rooted in politics.
Paul, during the Charlie Kirk controversy, ABC initially suspended Kimmel for a week before allowing him to return to the show. Why do you think Disney is standing by Kimmel now?
Because they lost the potential lot of subscribers the last time when they ignored the people that really liked it. So it was about the money. And to pick up on what Eric was saying, I'm one of those critics that says that this is absolutely part of a larger campaign by an autocrat, basically. Because what we're doing now is we're moving comedy and satire from something that is what I would call protected criticism to prohibitive disrespect, right? Satire is going to go over the line. It's going to cross the line. It's going to be inappropriate sometimes. I'm not condoning anything. You have a right not to like somebody. But when we start whittling away at this, we're losing a check on power, which satire has always been. And the uncertainty leaks in. So this is going to be successful, I think, even if it's not. Meaning, if this FCC boondoggle doesn't work, you still put out that sort of, ooh, I wonder, right? And that's a form of censorship. And that's exactly what they want. And then you have to ask, well, how did we get here? We have to hold a mirror up to ourselves as a society because we've become so politically divided and divisive that the Trumps are seizing on that sort of dysfunction, right? If I don't believe in 100% of what you believe in, Laura, I'm the devil to you and vice versa. How did we get here? 10, 15 years ago in a comedy club, if you had 50% people were Democrats and 50 Republicans, and you told a Democrat joke, everybody would laugh. You told a Republican joke, everybody would laugh. Now, you tell a Democratic joke, half the room laughs. Tell a Republican joke, the other half laughs. So either that or I'm a terrible comedian.
We know it's not that. We know it's not that. But Eric, I mean, to that point, even some of Trump's supporters think this move by the FCC may be a bridge too far. I mean, listen to this.
The Constitution doesn't grade comedy on a curve. It doesn't care about comedy. It's really not about even comedy. It doesn't require jokes to be funny or not funny. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. Kimmel has the right to say these things, and ABC has the right to air it. Disney has the right to employ him. That's free speech in action. With rights come responsibilities. Just because you can say something doesn't mean you should.
What do you think is making people so nervous about this moment on the conservative side, Eric?
Well, I think what's making people on all sides of the political spectrum nervous is that there's a sense that the government is targeting people that criticize the president. It's not even about saying something that's necessarily inappropriate. It's about pursuing the president's political agendas when the FCC's job is to actually uphold the public's interest. Well, we're supposed to be seeing decisions made about mergers, about licenses, about fines based on what is in the public interest, not in what is in President Donald Trump's interest. And I think that's troubling people across all political lines.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Trump has 2 more years left, Eric, in office and can appoint 2 more commissioners to the FCC. And that's in addition to the 2 that he already appointed, including, obviously, Chairman Brendan Carr. I mean, how might that impact the FCC and the First Amendment even after Trump leaves office?
Well, the thing that we know about fines and actions by the FCC is that they can be challenged in court. So even if President Trump is somehow able to create an FCC that would go along with some of these enforcement actions that seem questionable, They can challenge them in court. And in fact, CBS was fined something like $500,000 million over Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunction during the Super Bowl. They challenged it in court, and years later they won, and the fine was rescinded. So it is possible to challenge these actions in court.
Paul, Eric, thank you. Paul, look forward to hearing what you have to say as a late show with Stephen Colbert is coming to an end. Thank you so much, both of you. Next.